everybody, and welcome. I'm glad we got a few people here. Today I'm going to be talking about different types of pottery in the ancient Southwest. Specifically, we're going to be comparing some of the decorated wares and kind of maybe talking about different opinions about which one is best and why they might be best. So I did a poll about this a while back on my Facebook group, and it was very divided, and there was a lot of different opinions. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let me catch up with the chat, say hi to some people, and then I'll go through my list of things I want to cover, and we'll start going through these. We'll start going through the content I have today, because I have a lot of nice stuff to show you. So let's see what we got here. Dario Sin Aplido. I'm sorry if I'm messing that up. She's watched, or he, I don't know actually if it was she or he. I've watched all your videos on finding clay, but I'm still struggling to recognize good clay. Can you help? So finding good clay, I mean, it can vary from place to place, right? Because you might live in an area where there's not a lot of good clay, or you might be looking right at it and driving right past it, not understanding what you're looking at. So it's very complicated. I mean, it can be very hard to get to that point where you recognize it easily or know where to look. I just filmed a video a couple of days ago. It'll be out week after next, or next week now. It's Sunday. It'll be a week from this coming Sunday about recognizing clay in nature. So that might help you. Also, my Wild Clay 101 Masterclass, which you can find a link to down in the doobly-doo, will really help you also learn to recognize clay in nature. So you might enjoy that. It's not, I know it costs a little bit, but it's $35, so it's not a ton. It shouldn't break the bank. Organic paint. She also asked about organic paint. Organic paint, yes, it does burn out. So the firing is really important that it be really short duration and of a fairly low temperature. So when you're doing organic paint, there is a specific way to fire, and it has to be on the right slip. Special slips that will hold that organic paint, kind of lock that carbon away. So check out my videos on organic paint. I have several that cover that subject. That might help you. Nam made it from Australia. Hey, Nam, good to see you here. Sounds like 5 o'clock a.m. is better than 3 a.m., so hopefully that's a positive thing. Angela's here from Colorado. Hey, Angela. Kirby Hunter. Hello, I've started hand building thanks to you. I'm very grateful. Can you use just clay as paints, like porcelain, etc.? Yeah, so as long as those clays will mature at the low temperatures you're firing at, then you can. So that it just depends on whether they're going to mature. So a lot of porcelains and white clays in general have a higher maturation temperature than most of your wild clays. So paint some on, fire it, see how it does, right? That's how you know. But I've never personally tried porcelain paint, but most clays make great paints. If you have different colors of clay available, that's a great way to start out. The Old Uglies here from Canada, Alberta. -2 degrees today. Great firing weather. Yeah, that sounds really fun. I know some of you, I just got a message from somebody in Ontario today who was like, oh, I can't fire because it's so cold. I'm going to have to wait until spring. And so I sent her the link to West Airstream Wanderings has a really great video about firing in cold weather. I don't have much experience because I live in Tucson, obviously. But Wes is up in like Minnesota, and so he does have experience, and he fires during the winter. So if you are living in a cold climate and you want to know how that works, go check out Airstream Wandering's video on firing in cold weather, because it can be done. I know a lot of people that do it. Dr. Rattenkaiser, hello from Germany. Hey, glad to see you here. Cheryl, yay for nice content to show us. Thanks for all you do. Thanks, Cheryl. I appreciate that. Young Willie says hello. Hi, Young Willie. Good to see you here. Alan Boshin, have you ever learned about ceramic engineering? No, I can't say that I know anything about ceramic engineering. Maria Seidel, so interested. Okay, good. Kirby, hello, glad to be here. Trollface. Yeah, you're making me nervous, Trollface, with your name. Just a quick question. What do you think about dipping pieces in slip after engraving the piece so the slip pools in the engraving? Generally, you would not be able to dip a pot in anything liquid until it was fired, because that liquid, when you paint slip on a pot, you paint on one thin coat and you let it sit there and dry for 20 minutes, a half hour, and then you put on another thin coat, because if you had too much moisture to that dry clay, it will start trying to absorb that moisture. That clay will start expanding. As it does, it will expand unevenly, and it will crack your piece all to bits. So I have tried. Some people have speculated that a Mimbres pottery was dipped in slip, or the slip was poured in it and washed around and then poured out. And so I've tried and tried and tried to do that. And if you put, my experience, you put liquid slip on, you know, just wholesale, like pour it in or dip it in, the pot goes to pieces. So I think if you were going to do that, troll face, you would need to bisque fire first, and then perhaps that would be doable. But I don't have any experience with that whole bisque fire, decorate, and then fire again thing, because Southwest pottery is all single fired. So if you were going to do that and you wanted to single fire it, I would say you wouldn't dip it. You would maybe paint that slip into those lines. That might work. Let me go back to this thing here. Oh my goodness. Trying to find where I was. There's a lot of questions here today. Echo West is here. Good to see you. Started the journey into your world just making pookies and small bowls, but just practicing with store-bought clay just to get the feel. Good. That's a good way to start, Echo West. Dario Sin Apolito is in Mexico. Hey, good to see that. Our neighbors down in Mexico. I go to Mexico pretty frequently because I live close to the border. Hello from Germany, Alexandra Losky. Is clay marl suitable for pottery? So marl, I think the classic definition of marl, there may be other ways to interpret it, but I think marl is by definition clay that has calcium carbonate in it, in with the clay. And so I think what you would need to do with marl is keep the firing temperature below about 840 Celsius, because you get over that, you could start getting pops. If you have any, you know, pure pieces of calcium carbonate in there. If it's mixed thoroughly through the clay, you might be okay. That would be my concern. And we do have marl here in Arizona, and I have played around with it, but only at low temperatures. So that would be something to experiment with, but certainly if you keep your temperature low, it should work. Old Ugly, wow, USA, Canada, Germany, Denmark, Australia, that's pretty cool. Yeah, we got quite a international group here today. Ren Pixie, you're always here. Good to see you. Mary Dawn Pafford, hi. Rose K, volume is low. No kidding. Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. Because I don't, you know, if you don't say until late, then it's there forever. So let me know if that's too much, or if that's just right. Okay. Where was I? I lose my place in these chats constantly. So, troll face. Oh, that was that one. I saw that. Firing. Wes is here. He's firing right now. Good to see you here, Wes. Let us know how the firing comes out. Stephen Walford from France checking in. 7 p.m. here. Perfect. That's great. That's great. That's what I want. I mean, optimally, I would like to have this at a time that is good for the most people. And only half of my audience is U.S. based. So the more I can accommodate Europe and Australia and other places, the better for me. Granny Goose is here. Good to see you. I've stepped a small pot with smectite. I think you maybe meant slipped. And used some organic paint on it. I now really want to add some red details. Is it too late? If the pot is bone dry, then you are not going to put a hematite wash like the Salado stuff. But if it's still leather hard, you can do that hematite wash and then burnish it in. If the pot is bone dry, then you need to have like a third or more red clay mixed with that hematite in order to make it harden in the fire. So that's the way that works. You can add red. It has to be fixed somehow. It has to have some way of becoming hard in the firing. I meant slipped. Yeah, I got that. James Russell, hello from Sedalia, Missouri. Good to see you here. Greetings to you from Saleh, a town in Morocco. Great. Awesome. Cheryl, have you ever seen anything about ancient clay beads in the Southwest? Did they make them? You know, I've heard that they make them. In fact, I think over at the field school in Clifton, New Mexico, they found some evidence of that. Alan Denoyer was telling me about it, and it might have been a different site, but he was talking about handmade clay beads and that they'd found them like on the stick. So, you know, you'd form them around a stick and then fire it, and then the stick would burn out. But in all the ruins and sites I've visited in the Southwest, I don't believe I've ever seen clay beads. You find a lot of shell and stone beads, but I've never found any clay ones. That doesn't mean they weren't made, though. Okay, we're at MK Smiley's here. Good to see you. We also fire in really cold weather in Wisconsin. Absolutely. People that live in cold weather, I mean, you can't just stop firing for 6 or 8 months out of the year. You figure out a way to do it, and you do it. So that's great. Let's see. Kilby Hunter. Denmark seems to be pretty packed with clay. I've been collecting some. That's good. That's awesome. Hi, I'm from Tunisia. The clay we find at the sea can be used to... Oh, the clay that we find at the sea, can we do potteries? Sorry for bad English. Theoretically, you could. I mean, I haven't tested your clay in Tunisia to know, but even if it's salty, you know, from seawater, you can wash some of that salt out. Just put water over it, let it sit for a while, mix it up, let it settle, pour that water off, and change the water a couple times, and you can rinse a lot of that salt out. Tony Soares has a really good video about rinsing the salt out of clay, and you can check that out. That's here on YouTube. So if you look at Tony Soares Pottery, one of his recent videos is about washing the salt out of clay. I can't say your name. I'm sorry. It's written in Arabic script. Hi, I'm from Tunisia. The clay. Oh, that's the one I just read. Sorry. All I want for Christmas is a pottery wheel. Who'll be my first? He suggests. Ha! Ha! Alan Boshin, you came to the wrong live stream. I don't use a pottery wheel. This is all hand built coiled pottery here. So I could not make a suggestion because I've never used one myself. Just one asbesto. That's good. Darren Miller. Hey Andy, hope all is well, brother. Good to see you, Darren. Just one volume. Is the volume too much or too low? Just one asbesto. Where are we at here? It just says volume, so I don't know what to make of that. Volume sounds fine, says Ren Pixie. Charlene Thomas, good afternoon. Hey, how are you doing, Charlene? Sorry if I'm messing your name up. Young Willie, question, does the shape of the bowl or jar greatly affect the sound of the tink or bell after firing? Oh, no, that, I mean, the tone is definitely affected by the shape, but, I mean, if it thunks, you didn't fire hot enough, Young Willie. That's generally how it works. So if it sounds clinky, you've gotten it to melt a little bit and becomes one solid thing. If it sounds thunky, then it's either got a big old crack in it or you didn't fire it hard enough. Chris Dunham, hello from Georgia. Watching your videos has made me want to try pottery even more. Learning how do I do it with all the expensive equipment? Well, that's the thing about my videos. I don't use expensive equipment, right? So, you know, the way I do it, you can do it for nothing. It's free. Ilias... Oh, your name is hard for me. I'm sorry. More Arabic script. Is fire essential to turn clay to ceramics, or is there any other way to make the clay pottery practical in cooking, per example? You got to get it hot. I mean, you don't have to have fire to get it hot, right? You could put it in an electric kiln, but it's got to get up to like 700 degrees Celsius in order to turn that mud into ceramics. Baba Yaga's House of Plants. Love your channel. I'm playing with Scythian style pottery using your techniques. Awesome. I'd love to see some of that, Baba Yaga's House of Plants. Metalhead, hey Andy, greetings from South India. If any of you want to send me pictures of your work, contact me on Instagram. It'd be a great way to share photos of your pottery. South India, Metalhead. I didn't know you were in South India. Awesome. Just want to special volume is good. Good, glad to hear it. Vuk Jovic. I can't read it. I don't know what language you're writing there, Vuk. James Russell, where can I buy that sweater? I think I got this at Target. I don't think I ordered it online, which I do. Volume is good, says Chris and Candace. Good. Hello from Idaho, Suzanne Newman. Good to see you. Am I late? Well, maybe a little. Alan Boshin, thanks for answering my questions, Andy. Love your videos. Thank you. I'm glad you like them. Clay can be used to build homes without firing. So, well, that's true, but... with a home, when we built a home, we use earth to build homes or buildings quite a bit here in Arizona. And the thing is, when you build a home, you put a roof on it, or you put a cap of like fired bricks or concrete, something to keep that rain from coming down. You plaster the walls, keep the rain off of that mud. But with a piece of ceramic, I mean, you're putting liquid in it and you're handling it. It's fragile, right? I mean, the house just sits there, but this is much more fragile, and you're putting liquids and stuff in it. It's not going to survive very well if it's not fired. All right, let me get to my content, guys. So some reminders first of all. Okay, I have a pottery firing demo next week in Oro Valley, Arizona. So early in the morning, I'm going to start firing around 9. You can come a little later, but you don't want to show up at 10 or 10:30. You're going to miss everything. I'm going to be there at least by 8 to get the fire going and stuff. So if you're in Arizona and you want to come out, you can bring a pot. I'll fire it for you. We can talk about pottery, answer questions, whatever. Steam Pump Ranch, Oro Valley, Arizona, 9 o'clock Saturday morning. That's next Saturday, the 10th of December. Also, if you don't mind, hit that like button for me. That'll really help me with the algorithm, okay? Appreciate that very much. There's a December replication project that you can join in on, okay? And it's a canteen. It's a Pueblo-style ceramic canteen. If you go to my Instagram or my Facebook page, you can see a picture of that. And we're all, a lot of us, including those in the Ancient Potters Club, which meets every Wednesday over Zoom, we're making this canteen. So you can make your canteen, use some artistic license. It doesn't have to be exactly like the ancient one. Upload your picture with the hashtag Ancient Pottery December, okay, on Instagram, and then I'll share those at the end of the month if you want to participate in that, okay? And like I said, we are making that in the Ancient Potters Club, so if you'd like some lessons in it, if you'd like to do it step by step with a group, we'll be doing that every Wednesday evening, working on that canteen, starting this Wednesday. My video for this Wednesday, my YouTube video is going to be about firing with manure. So if you're interested in outdoor pottery firing, you don't want to miss that because it's going to be good. That's something I haven't covered before, talking about instead of using wood, which I usually use, using cow manure to fire pottery. So I'm sure you're going to get something out of that if you're interested in outdoor firing. Also, somebody said recently that I haven't mentioned enough about my newsletter. So I'm going to mention my newsletter. I have an email newsletter, only goes out once a month. So it's not a huge bother. It's not going to irritate you and clog up your inbox, right? One email a month. And if you sign up for that, you can get a discount. Every month I release a coupon for my store where you can get 20% off anything in my store. And I sell pottery. I sell, clay and polishing stones, all kinds of things, including some of the pots behind me here. And also you'll be alerted to events like this pottery firing demo or upcoming workshops, things like that. So the link to that is on my website. So if you go to my website, ancientpottery.how, and then click on the newsletter tab, you can sign up for my newsletter. So if you're interested, no pressure. All right. Oh, and then one last thing. So today we're going to be talking about the decorated pottery in the Southwest and which one is the ultimate decorated pottery, the best, right? We're going to pick the best. And so you're all going to vote. And I'm going to get the vote from every one of you about which one you like best. So down in the doobly-doo right now, there's a link. There's a link to my poll that's on my community tab. So, in YouTube, there's a community tab up there. Don't do it during the live stream. Stay here and listen. And then afterward, click on the link and go to that poll and vote. YouTube will only allow me to do a poll with 5 options. So I've whittled down the list we're going through today to 5 options, 5 that I thought were the best. And then we'll talk about those 5 types. They are Mimbres Polychrome, Sikyatki Polychrome, Fourmile Polychrome, Tonto Polychrome, and Ramos Polychrome. And then go down to the poll and vote. If you think that a type that isn't on the list is better than these types, go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know what you think about whatever type you like. I did a poll like this on my Facebook group, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago. I don't remember how long ago. And I got a lot of interesting results. One of these types that we're going to talk about today won by a large margin. I'm not going to tell you which one because I don't want to sway your vote. But there were a lot of comments on other types that I didn't mention. So what I've done here to compress it to 5 types is I've done only polychrome pottery. So then perhaps, and some of these ones that were suggested were non-polychrome, like Tularosa black on white, Tularosa pattern corrugated, McDonald corrugated. There was even like some of Holcomb red on buffs and such. So maybe in a future live stream we can compare the winner today to some of these other non-polychrome types or other people's suggestions. So it might be fun. Anyway, let me get back to the content here, okay? Let's talk about the first type we have, which is going to be Mimbres Polychrome. If I can get this thing to work, let's see. So here's the map from the museum in Silver City, the Western New Mexico University Museum of Mimbres territory. So Mimbres was just far southwest New Mexico, went a little over the border into Arizona and then south into Chihuahua a little bit. So right in there. And this is the earliest type we're going to be talking about today because Mimbres was made, like 1000 to 1140 or something like that. So it's very early compared to some of the other types we're going to talk about. And specifically because I said I compressed this to polychrome types only today, I'm only going to be talking about and showing Mimbres Polychrome. And the Mimbres Polychrome is pretty rare. You don't see these too often. And so that has that black reduced iron paint, and then it has something else. I don't know. I'm going to guess it's some sort of maybe a yellow clay or something that's painted on there, and then in reduction stays yellow, or maybe it starts out red and it turns yellow. At any rate, it usually has kind of a yellowish color added to it. And they are the rarest of the rare of the Mimbres types. Beautiful stuff though, and the Mimbres are known for their paint jobs, their quality paint jobs. Just really, really precise line work, really high quality stuff, especially for the age in which it was made. Like I said, 1100 to like 1000 to 1150, something like that. Most of the pottery in the Southwest at that point was still fairly crude. It would be hundreds of years more before a lot of other cultures came to the precision work that the Mimbres were doing. So really impressive, and some really nice stuff that even today, even after 1,000 years, it still speaks to us across the ages. A lot of really amazing mythical scenes of animals and bugs and birds and fish. And this appears to be a turkey with a rattlesnake head. So some really cool stuff. Oh, I already did that one. Did I do that one twice? I don't know how I did it twice. Okay. No, I guess I'm going the wrong direction. Sorry. And a lot of these pictures are from that Western New Mexico University Museum. You can see the turkey with the rattlesnake head on the left there, and the bugs with the interconnecting beaks on the right, which we'd already looked at. But there's one in the back there that's more of a geometric form, also polychrome. Pretty impressive stuff. Let's see. Another one. And I think I have just a couple more on these. And some of these, that yellow just really pops, like this one. I don't know if it's the lighting, or the quality of the photograph, or if the yellow is just brighter, but really, really stunning, in my opinion. And a lot of these pictures I just scraped off the internet, so some of these are from auction houses that have them for sale. Some of these are pictures that I've taken at different museums. Some of these are from museums' websites, so I can't even remember where they're all from. This one I'm pretty sure was an auction house. I think that's the last one. So that's Mimbres Polychrome. Really impressive stuff. And like I said, about 1000 AD, something like that. So let's go back to here. I have this Tonto Polychrome here, and I'll talk about it later when we talk about Tonto. But the red, all this red here, it's just hematite. It's just red ochre that is painted on this damp clay. So I paint the red on when it's leather hard, and then I use a smooth stone, to polish it. And what that does is that presses those little bits of pigment, those red pigment, down into that soft clay, and that makes it permanent. It doesn't come off because it's pressed into the damp clay. So I think what you're saying is something similar, right? You're taking those pigment particles, you're pressing them down into the clay to make them permanent. So even though maybe they didn't have something that rolled, I think a smooth stone would do exactly the same thing. So I think the principle is sound. Granny Goose says that's a fascinating idea. Young Will, you just gave me an idea for helping me adhere my white slip. Yeah, a lot of the prehistoric paints were done that way, where they were pressed in. And there's a little trick. There's a modern trick where if you take like a plastic sack, like a Walmart bag, you place it over the damp pot, then you can just polish over all the designs, and you don't have to, because when you're doing this, you have to carefully cut color inside the lines, because if I take a stone and I go from the red to the white, I make a smudge. But if I put a piece of I don't do this, but I mean, if I wasn't trying to be authentic, this is a good way to do it. Put a piece of plastic over it, and then you just polish over everything, and it doesn't smudge it, but it presses it into the damp clay. Vuk Jovic. I'm from Serbia, so Van Ve. I don't know what all this is. So Des Van Ve, you can say my name. I like these videos. Glad to hear it from Serbia. Awesome. Lisa Morales. Hey. Dan Jackson. Hello. Metalhead cow manure. Way to go, buddy. Yeah, no, it's actually a good firing material. Stephen Walford. Cow poop. Great. I have a few buckets waiting to try out. Alexandria Lasky. What part of sunflower do you need to cook for organic paint? When I'm making organic paint out of anything, well, generally, like when your bee plant is the traditional organic paint material, and you just chop the whole plant, leaves, stems, seed heads, flowers, everything but the roots, right? Throw it in a pot and boil it down. I do exactly the same with sunflower. Seed heads, flowers, leaves, stems, the whole thing. Chop it up, put it in a pot. So the whole plant is the answer. Metalhead, here's some people use horse manure and hay patties for bigger size pottery, like 4 feet or more. Oh, that's interesting. Here in the Southwest, generally they'll, like horse manure, it's hard to get like a solid patty from it. So they use horse manure, like when they smother that black pottery up at, in the New Mexico Pueblos, they make that black pottery. They'll use horse manure because it's just kind of loose and crumbly and you can just smother it. But like when you're firing, it's nice to have a solid chunk, like cow pies that you can stack, or like they'll get the sheep manure from the bottom of the corral, the pen, and they'll chop it into bricks, and then you can just stack them up. It's going to be a tough choice, says Lanite Dave. My preference, Mesa Verde, Hohokam, Red on Buff. Angela, Mesa Verde, and Hohokam, Red on Buff aren't even on here today, so I'm going to lose. But see, that's why I made the, because I can only have 5 options. That's why I made it polychromes. So the Hohokams don't have a polychrome, and neither does Mesa Verde. So you're out of luck. Lost my place again. Sometimes it jumps. It's weird. I've never heard of Mimbres Polychrome, says Jeanette Waverly. Well, now you do. Echo West, can you see cactus fruit to make organic paint cooked down to thick jam? Yeah, absolutely. I like to use yucca fruit, so the big banana yucca fruits. But I've also used prickly pears. You can, anything that has sugar in it is going to make a good paint because it's sticky, you know. Just one asbesto. Let's see, love the animal, birds, bugs. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool stuff. That Members. Why are so many broken with a hole through the bottom? Jeff Cape Shop says, "Oh, why are so many of those pots broken with a hole in the bottom?" So the Mimbres Polychromes or the Mimbres pottery, a lot of those have a hole broken through the bottom. And people have speculated that has something to do with, you know, some religious beliefs, letting the spirit free or something. But, and a lot of them were found that way. A lot of them are found in burials, but a lot of them are not found in burials as well that also have that hole. So it's hard to say for sure. It could be something like that, though. We just don't know. The trouble was Mimbres culture ceased at around 1150. So this type of pottery stopped being made. The kill holes stopped taking place. So whatever was going on there in 1100, it stopped in 1150. And so by the time anybody came with pen and paper to write down what was going on, long ago this tradition had died out. So we just really don't know. Young Willie Granite, see, Janet Waverly. Thinking of using pokeweed berries for paint, like the natives in the western Pennsylvania would have. Yeah, any kind of like a berry or a fruit would probably work if you could boil it down and just make it, you know, a syrup out of it. For organic paint. You can't boil all plants. Well, you can boil a lot of plants, I guess. I don't know. The feed is intermittently breaking up. Oh gosh, is that happening to everybody? Or is that just me? Is that just you? YouTube is telling me that the feed is of excellent condition right now. So I apologize if there's problems. I just don't know what's going on specifically. But thanks for that, Dave. Would you use honey as a binder? Maybe. I've never tried it, James Russell, but perhaps. All plants can be boiled. It's just what you get from the boiling process that might not be so great. Well, you know, I mean, that's where experimentation comes in, right? I mean, you try something once and it doesn't work, try something else. I've tried a lot of things and got similar results. You never know until you try it, says Metalhead. That's right. You said red iron oxide on a pot. Did 2 layers of the red iron oxide, the outer layer turned black, then flaked off, and the lower coat remained red? That's weird. I've never had anything like that happen. That's crazy. Okay, just trying to get through, find the questions here. Cow manure, live on open range so I could clean up my yard. Red Pixie, yeah. Some of us have lots of cow manure. I actually did a video this week for the Polychrome channel members where I was driving around looking for cow manure because, believe it or not, it's hard to find here right now. You know, during the summer, the cows were all eating that fresh green grass and they all had the squirts, so there was no pies being made. And so it can be hard to find even around here, and there's lots of cattle grazing. Rabbit manure. Well, the rabbit manure would have the same trouble with like deer or a lot of things that have small pellets. You need a chunk that you can stack. So if I had rabbit, I'd try to figure out a way to compress it into a brick, you know, because you're just going to have to make a giant mound of rabbit manure and then you wouldn't get any oxygen inside. I don't know if that would be a good idea. Andy, you cannot use the manure right away. It needs to mix with the rice or wheat hay. Oh, yeah, I don't know about that. I'm just using cow manure. It's not used right away because it's dry, but it's not mixed with hay. You're not allowed to boil weed plants here. What in the world? Weird. Granny Goose, anthropology class taught me when an important person dies, they broke a hole, so everyone ever uses a pot. Yeah, but see, the thing about that, Granny Goose, is that because Mimbres culture stopped in 1150, I think a lot of that is speculation. Angela, yeah, no, it's not chocolate, Angela. It's coffee. But it takes a lot of coffee to get through a live stream, so it's good that way because I can pour a whole pot of coffee in this thing. Okay, let me get back to my stuff here. The next one we're going to talk about is Sikyatki. What time we got? 11:30. We got time. We're going to look at some Sikyatki Polychrome. So Sikyatki was made up on the Hopi mesas in like the 1300s. And not only is it beautiful, and one of the things about it is it's usually got more than 3 colors. So most polychromes will have 3 colors only: red, black, white, something like that. Or like in the Mimbres, we had white, black, and yellow, right? But with the Hopi, you've got like red and orange and black and sometimes white. You've got that yellow base underneath. So there's a lot of colors and there's a lot of creativity. So the other thing you see in a lot of potteries is you see a repetition. Like you get a certain design and you see that done over and over again in different configurations. But with Sikyatki, there seems to be a lot of creativity, a lot of very different. Like every pot is different, and so it's just really amazing. And sometimes there's there's birds and animals represented. There seems to be an insect in the middle of this design. So yeah, just really cool stuff. Here's some that I got off the Museum of Northern Arizona, and they have a watermark on their images. So, but the Hopis had this beautiful clay. It's a gray clay actually, and it fires to yellow. And they were firing it with coal, so it gets really, really well oxidized because those coal fires get up to about 950 Celsius, which is pretty hot, and then they last for hours and hours. Like, it's not unusual to have a coal firing that'll last like 10 or 12 hours long. So just crazy long duration, and they just sit there and oxidize over this long period. So they're fully oxidized, and then the colors just really pop, nice and bright. And so because they had these unique materials up at Hopi, Sikyatki Polychrome was only ever made up at the Hopi mesas. It wasn't made down on the little Colorado. It wasn't made over, by Chinle Wash. It wasn't made up, by the Utah border. It wasn't made anywhere but Hopi because you've got to have that specific type of clay they have that fires yellow. You've got to have that coal firing. The coal is right there at Hopi. So beautiful, beautiful stuff. And you know, it traded far and wide. So you can go around the Southwest, a lot of places, and you'll find Hopi yellowware pottery was traded in. And I think part of that was because they were firing with coal, it was very durable. And so people back in ancient times, they wanted it. It was in demand because it probably would outlast other more local types that were softer. It was very hard and durable. So like when you tink, you know, a Hopi pot, it really tinks because it's nice and hard. And just like I said, so many different interesting designs. Like every pot seems to be one of a kind. And this one has moths on it. You see the moths there? 2 moths on each side. Amazing colors and paints. And all the materials for it are found right there at the Hopi mesas. So if you wander around there below the mesa, so the villages were up on top of the mesa, up on this rocky mesa top. If you go down the side of the mesa, you'll find all those materials. You'll find a layer of that gray clay that they were using for the body, which fires yellow. You'll find little nodules of red ochre to make the red paint. You'll find little bits of green and yellow clay that you can use for the other colors of paint. You'll find little, it's like bog iron. They're little nodules of, they call them hematite there, but they're mineral nodules. They probably have a lot of manganese in them as well that they make their kind of brownish black paint with. So everything was found, including the coal, right on the edge of that mesa as you walk down from the village. So if you walk around down below the village, you'll find sherds. These sherds were all found down below the village. So the village, like I said, it's up here, and then down at the base, there's sherds everywhere because that's where they were firing their pottery. And there's big mounds of ashes and coal from burning the coals, from burnt coal ash, and oxidized rock and bits of pottery sherds from years and years and years, generations of firing in the same spot, big mounds of that coal ash and sherds. And this is where this was found. So the Sikyatki Polychrome, you know it was being made there because, you know, here's the firing spots, and there's the sherds from it. I think this is frost that causes those little bits to spall off on it. But you can see that's one of those big Sikyatki jars. So it's really fun to explore that area. I got to go out there with Bobby Silas last year. It was 2021, and do some exploring. And Bobby Silas is a Hopi artist, and he makes coal-fired Sikyatki Polychrome replicas. So this is one of the pots he fired while I was with him up there at Hopi. This is the pot. This is after firing. So again, you can see all those colors he's got in there. There's like red, and there's orange, and there's yellow, and there's black, and there's white. It's just rich pottery. And you know, the funny thing about, not funny, but the interesting thing about Hopi pottery is all these little design elements, they all mean something. So if you sit down with an artist, a lot of times they'll tell you what everything is. This means this, and this means that. Very fascinating. I think it was up at the Kiln Conference last year where Bobby was explaining this pot, like all the pieces of it, what different things mean. Fascinating. And Wes over at Airstream Wanderings did a video, I think a month or two ago, about a different Hopi artist that explained the meanings of the designs. So interesting stuff. And then this is the other pot that Bobby fired when I was up there. And so this is the coal. This is the next morning. So we put it in the fire, say, 6 o'clock at night. And this is like 7 or 8 the next morning. And the coals are still hot. And it's just peeking out. So we're just starting to kind of open up. That's all the... So it's lignite coal. It's not pure coal. It's got a lot of like sandstone and stuff in with it. So it leaves this kind of like oxidized, kind of crumbly rock all around when the coal burns away. And so this is the remains of the lignite coal burning away. And it's just showing out. So up at the Kiln Conference, I was able to trade Bobby. And I own this pot now. So this is an example of one of those coal-fired... This is one of those coal-fired Sikyatki Polychrome replicas that he makes. And you can see it used to be, yeah, it's still there. There's still coal ashes inside of it. See that? And so I haven't taken them out because I think that's really cool. There's literally ashes from the coal that fell inside the pot when he was firing it. So really pretty. The only thing that really didn't come out so good is because the body clay is kind of yellow, but he did some of these feathers here. This one is white, see? There's a white feather, and they didn't come out so good. See, you can see it here, the little white feather. It's not enough contrast, but just really beautiful. Really beautiful pot. And it's signed with a coyote track and Silas, because Bobby's in the coyote clan. So that's a little treasure that I have. Is that all I had for the? Let me check my my thing here. I'll go back to the slides here. Let's make sure that's the last of mine. I think I have one more. Or maybe I have a couple more. Oh no, that's the last. That's the last of the. So that's Sikyatki Polychrome. That was made, like I said, up in the Hopi Mesas, and that'd be 1300s, 13 to 14 or 1450, something like that. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Let me go back to the chat really quick, make sure I'm all caught up. Jeanette Waverly says she's seen potsherds tempered with horse manure. Yeah, they used to do that in historic times. Makes for a very porous pot because the manure will burn out in the firing, obviously. Rabbit in a bucket. I don't know what that means. Yes, so funny. Thank you for sharing the knowledge. You're welcome. A rabbit manure in a bucket. I want to try my pottery pink and hot pink now. Okay. Some Hopis use compressed sheep manure for firing. They buy it from Navajo shepherds. Yeah, so what happens, because sheep manure is like deer manure. It's just little pellets, right? And so what happens is at night, they run the sheep into a corral to protect them from coyotes and stuff, you know. They run them into a corral, and the sheep sit in there, and they use the bathroom there in the corral, and they pee on it too. And so it gets compressed down. So all that, it gets a little bit of dirt in it, but mostly it's manure. And then over the course of years of them pooping in that corral and then walking on it and treading on it and pooping and treading on it and peeing on it and treading on it, it gets compressed into a thick layer throughout the corral. And they dig it up and they chop it. They'll literally like cut it like with a chainsaw, and they'll cut it into blocks. And then you can just stack those blocks just like bricks around the pot. Very much similar to the way Bobby stacks coal over the pottery. So, yeah, and they buy it. In fact, they spend, some of those Hopi potters spend a lot of money because they don't have their access to the manure. The Navajos have the sheep. They're paying Navajos to cut it out of the corral and transport it. And sometimes a Hopi potter will pay, literally, they'll pay thousands of dollars per year for manure to fire their pottery with. You know, it's the business expense to them. They write it off on their taxes. That one's amazing. Beautiful artwork. Dan Jackson, you should look at Celadon pottery from Korea. Dan, send me a picture of it. Martinez used patties mixed with hay and dusted with ash. They make them thick and big. Huh. Ren Pixie, is there a public access area for Hopi clay or only on the res? Yeah, it's only on the res. It's only on the Hopi res and some on the Navajo res. So the best way to, if you... Ren Pixie, when I was up, so Bobby lives at Zuni, and so he can only get Hopi clay if he goes over to Hopi, and that's a long way, and he doesn't even have a vehicle, or at least he didn't last time I was there. And so when we were out on the Mogollon Rim collecting clay, me and Bobby, he found some clay that he said reminded him of Hopi clay, and he collected a bunch of it and took it back to Zuni, and he made Hopi pottery with it. So there may be some places where you can get clay even in your area that are maybe not exactly the same, but similar enough that you might be able to do that. That I'm just talking from secondhand information. I haven't tried it myself, but yeah. So like Wayne Keene, he's a potter who goes to the Kiln Conference. He likes to use Hopi clay. He grows blue corn in his garden, and then he takes the blue corn over to Hopi. He has Hopi friends. He trades that Hopi blue corn for clay, which is, a pretty good trade for both of them. I guess it's like you got to have friends over there. I made a live stream, been a while, have been watching after. Have you heard of the ancient black sand culture of the Midwest? No, James Russell, I've never heard of that. Jeanette, the cow pies I've been using in contemporary Pueblo farms don't appear to be mixed with anything. I think most of the New Mexico Pueblos use cow manure. So they're just using patties, I'm in the smokeless kiln as of now because my neighbors are angry. Granny Goose is pretty. Can you use straight coal for high temps? Yeah, you can use coal. I've only been involved in that lignite coal firing up there at the Hopi, but yeah, you certainly can use coal. You should watch that video I made about Bobby firing with coal. That'll give you some ideas on how that's done if you have access to coal. Metalhead. HOAs are not pottery friendly. Yeah, no kidding. Question, do you think the ancients may have used a stone bead to roll over the paint to fix it in the leather hard? I think I answered that. They were using not a bead, but a stone, just a smooth stone. I mean, the bead works good because it rolls, but I think they were using a smooth stone, not anything that rolls. But the concept is the same. Propane is expensive. I use tamarind tree wood. The earthy tones of the Hopi pottery is no doubt my favorite, calming to the eyes. Same with rabbit manure. Purchased some Hopi clay from Hopi Potter. Not enough to build with, but I use it as slip. Yeah, I know a few people that have some that they use as slip. I have a bucket of it that I got from my friend Tom Weiss, who passed away recently, and I want to do something with it, but I'm kind of worried because I want to do it justice when I do it. So I mean, because I'm not like going to get more of it. So I'm still considering it, but I'll do a video about it when I do, for sure. Where are we at? 11:46. We might go over today. I don't know. If you can hit that like button, that would help me out a great deal. Thank you, everybody. All right. We're moving on past Sikyatki. And don't forget there's a poll, you know, and the link is in the doobly-doo. Take that poll when you're done to tell me which type you like best. We're going to talk about Fourmile Polychrome. Fourmile is one of my favorites. I really like it. So Fourmile was made here in this area along the Mogollon Rim from about, you know, if you're familiar with the Mogollon Rim, from about Heber down to, you know, a little past Show Low, you know, Snowflake area. So it's a pretty limited area there, and it's really beautiful. So it's got a red background slip. The body clay is usually a white or gray clay, which they have up in that area a lot of. And then it's got a slip. The slip is yellow, actually. We know that because archaeologists have found, excuse me, I keep burping. Archaeologists have found unfired pottery in some of the ruins, and so we know that the slip is actually that yellow ochre that is common up there in the White Mountains. And that fires to a nice red, sometimes a little orange, sometimes a little pinkish color. And then on top of that, the paint is actually, I don't know why that Sikyatki keeps coming up. I'm going to get rid of it. On top of that, the paint is actually a lead and copper based glaze paint. And so in some places it's really glazy, really shiny, and other times it's just kind of fused with the pot. So it's got a little bit melty and kind of attached itself to the pot, which is a great fixative. Remember I talked about earlier how, you know, you can add clay to your mineral to make it harden in the fire, or you can go over it with a stone and, you know, press it into the clay. Different ways of making that ground mineral stay on the pot. So in this case, they were making it stay on the pot by melting it, by using lead and copper. And then all of that black is outlined with white, which is just white clay. And just stunning, amazing work. And again, like I said about the Mimbres stuff, yeah, remember I talked about how precise their line work is. Look at the line work on this, super precise line work. And the colors, you know, they just pop. So sometimes they're jars. These last two have been jars, but more commonly bowls. Lots and lots of bowls. Beautiful bowls. And some of these pictures I have are from auction houses. So what you find with the auction houses is a lot of times they'll go in and they'll fix, like if there's a piece missing, they'll recreate that area, or if it's cracked or if it's soiled. These pots have been through a lot, right? These pots have been out in the desert, you know, or buried for hundreds of years. A lot of times the pueblos they were in burned, and then the pots get discolored from smoke and from fire. Sometimes after the pot was broken, it was thrown in a trash midden, and then that burned. So a lot of times the different pieces of the pot are different colors. You know, they've been walked on by cattle. They've been in crumbling ruins. They've been laying out in the sun. So a lot of times these pots aren't in the best of shape, right? And these auction houses want to get top dollar, so they'll kind of touch up the paint and stuff. So a lot of the ones that come from auction houses, sometimes they look really pristine, but the truth is a lot of times they're not really pristine. They're covered in like acrylic paint and stuff, but they have really good people that know what they're doing to make it look really good. And so then a lot of times you see the ones that come out of museums and they don't look quite as nice. And that's just because the museum isn't trying to cover up the damage. They're just trying to show the ancient artistry. This one is a pretty unique design, very different from the usual. And some of those black areas are not outlined in white, which is unusual because usually the black areas are all outlined in white. And this one has a chip out of the rim, so you can see that the body clay underneath that yellow slip was white or gray color, which says a lot about it. Now this is one they have at Q Ranch, and it's interesting because, like I was talking about the precise line work, right? If we go back to like this one. The line work is just immaculate, really, really tight. And if you know anything about that glaze lead copper paint, it's not the easiest to paint with because it's kind of thick and clumpy, you know, and you have to get it on relatively thick in order to get it to glaze good. And to be able to do precise line work with that paint is you know, it says something about the artist, the abilities of the potter. So. You know, you look at this one; it's a little sloppier, and so there were different places where they were trying to imitate Fourmile, and they'd make copies of Fourmile, but they weren't doing as good of a job. So, like down at Point of Pines over north of Stafford, they had a type they called Point of Pines Polychrome, and it was just a cheap imitation of Fourmile, and they just weren't as good. Now, this is not Fourmile. This is not Point of Pines Polychrome, and the reason we know that this was made above the rim. A lot of the copies were made below the rim. So the Mogollon rim being like a barrier, right? Above the rim, we were making that really quality, really nicely painted. Below the rim, a lot of the imitations were coming from. But there's a chip in the rim here, and we can see that the base clay was gray or white. It's a light-colored base clay. So we know this probably came from above the rim, where they had access to those white clays. Below the rim, they would have been brown, usually. But this is one at Fourmile, and it does have that glazed slip paint. So if you look at the upper part of the picture there, you can see some reflection coming off of that black paint where it's gone glazy. And that's really the trick. Is that my last? That's my last picture of Fourmile. That's Fourmile Polychrome. Another type for you to consider for the best painted pottery in the Southwest. Now we're going to talk about, real quick, one of my favorites, which is, if you know me very well, we're going to talk about Tonto Polychrome, which is a Salado type. And Tonto Polychrome was made in this area, the southern Southwest, Phoenix, Tucson, almost as far east as like Silver City, New Mexico. Not quite as far south as the border, but pretty close to it. And there's different types of Salado Polychrome. Archaeologists divide them into, you know, based on the design. So like Gila is mostly just white with black designs on it. And then Tonto, the red kind of interplays with the white area. So you get, you know, red designs in there as well. Whereas with the Gila, the red is usually just a solid area. And so, you know, there's different kinds, but Tonto's pretty amazing. It's pretty beautiful. And, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work because you can't, like I said, you can't overlap those two. The red is like who was saying at Young Willie about pressing the pigments into the clay? That red is just pigment. It doesn't have clay mixed with it. It's just red ochre painted on, and then they're going over it with a stone to press it into the damp clay. And when you're doing that, you can't run from the red into the white or you'll make a smudge. So you have to just carefully work around all those edges. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of labor to make that. So, and the painting style on Tonto is, oh, that's not coming up. I'm trying to make this work. Sorry, guys. Oh, wait. There we go. The painting style is a little sloppier than like, you know, what we've looked at Fourmile and Sikyatki and Mimbres. It's a little bit sloppy, but I think it's expressive as well. I think it, you know, like, what do I like to compare it to? Like a Japanese calligraphy, right? A little bit like, you know, just brush through it really fast, but it kind of has a feel to it too, you know. that can only be caused that way. So I like it. I think it has a lot of feeling to it, a lot of character. And you get all different, you know, design styles. This is more like your Fourmile style, and then other ones are more like a Kayenta style. So there's different design types. Just really beautiful, and I love the interplay of the red and white on black. And it is unique because this is the only one of those types that we're going to talk about today that uses organic paint. All the others use mineral paints. So that black is actually organic paint, whether they were using bee plant or whether they were using yucca fruit or mesquite beans. We don't really know. Archaeologists have done some tests to try to find out what that black was made from, but the tests all come back telling them it's carbon. So so far they've been unable to identify what the source of that carbon is. And sometimes it's on jars, and sometimes it's on bowls. This one's on a bowl. So this is a good example of, like, archaeologists love lumping these into types, right? So this is Cliff Polychrome Tonto variety. So the inside with the design field at the rim and that recurve rim, and then more design at the bottom, and then a line break around, a big thick line around the middle inside. That tells you it's Cliff Polychrome. But a lot of cliffs are all slipped red on the outside. This one has a Tonto design. That is the red interplaying with the white areas on the outside. A lot of work to make that. A lot of effort somebody put into that. And then this is like one of the best. This one came from the Safford area. Really gorgeous. This is up in Colorado at the museum up there. So that's Tonto Polychrome. What do I got for time? 56. Okay, let me go back to the chat. I'll answer the rest of the questions that I have, and then I'll do my last pottery type is Ramos Polychrome from Casas Grandes, and then we'll talk a little bit about the poll. Hit that like button if you would. I'd appreciate it very much. Let's see where we're at here. Echo West, use of wood pallets for fuel. Yeah, I've used pallets, and my friend Mott's here in town uses pallets all the time. Pallets are good because I mean, you're recycling, you're reusing things, and it's pretty available, especially if you're in an urban area. Should be fine if not chemically treated. Yeah, right. You don't want to use chemically treated pallets for sure. You want just straight wood. My Granny Goose says my pottery is expressive too. Sounds much nicer than sloppy. Yeah. Jeff Cooper says the Japanese brush style is called Hakame. Thanks, Jeff. I don't know anything about Japanese art, but I do enjoy it. Phyllis Georgic says, I like the inside and the outside designs. Jeff Cooper, probably spelling wrong, though. Yeah, it's okay. It's the thought that counts. Good morning from Kayenta. Oh, hey, Kayenta. Question. Kayenta Salado mix existed. So they think that immigrants from the Kayenta area came down here to southern Arizona after about 1275, 1300, and intermixed with the local culture. They find a couple of different things. They find Kayenta living in among existing pueblos, like at Point of Pines, and they find Kayenta enclaves, like little villages that are just Kayenta in style. They even have, some of them have kivas and everything, and they're down here in southern Arizona. And then over time, they kind of dispersed among the local populace. But we see Kayenta designs showing up in Salado Polychrome. So they think that they were involved in the manufacture of Salado. And they find those perforated plates, which are from up there, all through this area, through the Salado period. So they think if you go to a village that is a known Salado Polychrome production village, you will almost always find those perforated plate sherds. They had a puki with holes popped in it all the way around. So that's a sign that maybe the people that were making that Salado Polychrome were Kayenta or had learned something from Kayenta potters or something. So I don't know, they don't really know for sure, but there's definite ideas that the Kayenta were down here. And there definitely are Kayenta designs that pop up all through there. Like that bird wing that kind of curves around and there's those fingers, That's something that's found up there in Kayenta as well. See where I'm at here. Tommy Seaton, young Willie, Granny Goose. Tanya Ward's on here. Oh no, that's my wife. Here's a picture of Korean Celadon pottery. It's a link. I don't think links are coming through, man. Thanks for the vote of confidence. What region made the largest painted pots? Oh gosh, some of those Salado pots are really big. There is a Gila Polychrome pot that I put in a video recently. I can't remember which video. One of my recent videos in the last couple months. And one of the guys that watches my videos up in Montana, he's doing real well making pottery based on what he's learning from my videos. And he said, oh, I want to make that one. How big is that? And I said, you know, I don't know. I've seen it, but it's big. I said, it's probably like 16-inch diameter. Well, I looked it up. It was a 20-inch diameter pot. I mean, that massive, massive pot. Some of those, I think Salado might hold the record for size. Definitely the next one we're going to talk about, Ramos, they're usually a little smaller. Some of those 4-mile ones are big. Even the Sikyatki ones can be pretty big, but some of those late 1300s, early 1400s, like Tonto Polychrome pots, some of those are really big. So let's do the rest of the slides then. Talk about Ramos Polychrome. Give me a second to set this up. And okay, so this is a map that an archaeologist had made, and this kind of shows where different types of pottery came from. So we can see Ramos Polychrome kind of center, right there around Pakime. Now my ruin, I have a ruin down by the Chiricahuas in far southeast Arizona. It'd be on this map just above and kind of upper, kind of like 1030 on the map, right above and to the left of the Animus phase Ramos Polychrome area. And we get a lot of, in that area, we get a lot of Corretas. So if you look at just below that, it says Corretas Huarigos Polychrome. We get a lot of Corretas in that area. And then, you know, a fair amount of Ramos as well. But the Ramos stuff, it's made with a really specific clay. So I think it was all coming from a probably limited area given the quality of clay. So these are two sherds I found out at my property. What day were we out there? It was Thursday. It was Thursday, so just a few days ago. The top one is a Salado type. It's polished, it's slipped and polished red, and then it's black and white on the other side. And the big sherd, the lower sherd is Ramos Polychrome, real typical, and we find a lot of it there. So, you know, we're in the area where we're getting a lot of tradeware from Mexico. And you can see that clay, it's a really nice white clay, but not just that. You know, if you see a break, it's solid all the way through. It's fired nice and hard, but also it doesn't have chunks of like grit or sand, temper sticking out of it. It's some kind of I think it's some kind of what's the word for it? It's coming from volcanic material or something. It's got volcanic ash in it. And that's one of the things that makes Hopi pottery really nice is it's self-tempered. It doesn't have to have sand added to it. It has enough volcanic ash in it naturally that it's self-tempered. And I think that's the same thing with this Ramos Polychrome. And again, this is very late. This would be contemporary with Sikyatki and Salado and even Fourmile. So this very late. This would be like 1250 or 1200 to, you know, to 1450, something like that for Ramos. And really, really beautiful stuff. These are all mineral paints now. The red is, you know, probably some kind of, I'm going the wrong direction again. I do that all the time. The red is some kind of a, you know, iron oxide or something, and the black is manganese based. This one's a little unusual in shape. Most of them are kind of this egg shape. You know, it's really common. And like I said, they get large, but they don't get as big as Salado. They're relatively quite a bit smaller, and often similar shaped like that egg shape. But really, really precise line work. The painting is super nice, and all mineral paint, and just beautiful. This is a little bit of an unusual shape and design, but really pretty. Now, some of those you guys might have heard that Juan Quezada down in Mata Ortiz passed away this past week. And a lot of that Mata Ortiz pottery started out trying to make replicas or fakes of these Casas Grandes pottery types. And so they were trying to replicate this initially. And some of the old Mata Ortiz stuff, you know, the stuff that was made back in the 70s, you know, and maybe like the early 80s, when they were still doing basically fakes, right? They were trying to sell them as ancient pots, even though they were new. Some of those have gotten into museums because they're so good. And so I know a friend down in Mata Ortiz, a potter, who actually can go to these museums in the States, and he'll spot the Mata Ortiz knockoffs essentially, and even the museum curators don't know the difference. But really pretty, like I said, the quality of the clay is interesting because some of it tends a little more towards white. Some of it is a little yellow, almost Hopi yellow, like this one here. And some of them are a little more on the tan side. Probably depending on where they were. But I think the qualities of the clay are very consistent across Ramos. And so probably it was made within a pretty limited area, I would guess, just based on the clay. And I also wonder if that shape doesn't tell us something about the quality of the clay. The fact that they're all kind of that similar shape, that speaks to me of a clay that doesn't have a lot of, it's limited in its abilities, right? It's not super strong. It's not super plastic. You can coil it up into that egg shape, but if you try doing anything dramatic, like some of those Sikyatki ones, those Hopi pots we looked at, where they come in like this, and some of the Salado ones too, they'll come in quite a bit before they come up. Perhaps this clay, because you never see those kind of shapes with this, perhaps this clay just wouldn't hold up. Most of those walls on this Ramos stuff, most of the walls of those pots are pretty vertical. Everything above the puki is pretty vertical or incoming. So I think that says something maybe about the quality of their clay. I would love to go down there sometime and experiment with their clays and see what I could do to find clays like this, because if you look at the Mata Ortiz stuff, it generally is a little too brown compared to what you see coming out of Casas Grandes, ancient Casas Grandes. But like I said, this one and a lot of them kind of lean towards brown. So anyways, it'd be a fun project. Now some archaeologists will say, oh, they made some of that in the States. Some of the people think they made some in the Boot Heel of New Mexico, far southwest New Mexico, and I've even heard archaeologists speculate that it could have been made in the Sulphur Springs Valley here in southeast Arizona. But I'm pretty familiar with the clays in the Sulphur Springs Valley, and I don't believe they were making this stuff down there. This kind of clay does not exist down there. Now the Boot Heel, New Mexico, I've spent far less time down there. I couldn't really say. This is that museum, the El Paso Museum of Archaeology. They have a tremendous collection of Casas Grandes pottery. If you ever get to El Paso, even if you're just driving through, that museum is worth going to. They've got pottery from all over the Southwest, but specifically they have a lot of really nice Casas Grandes pottery there. And that's that museum again. And that's the last one I have for this. So I don't know why that like button came up. So don't forget, as I wrap up here, what are we at? 12:07. Don't forget that I have a poll on these 5 pottery types. So figure out which one you like best, or which one you think is the best. And now sometimes it can be personal opinion, like it just speaks to me, right? But it could also be related to the quality of the line work, or how hard it was to make, or So I mean, think about it and vote on that poll. That link's down in the doobly-doo. It's in the community tab up above here somewhere too. So vote on the poll. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me cover my things again. I got a pottery fire demo next weekend, Saturday, December 10th, in Oro Valley at Steam Pump Ranch. That's early in the morning. It's going to be about 9 o'clock. Hit that like button for me. That'll help. December replication project is the canteen, and you can see pictures of that on my Facebook page and on my Instagram. And then if you make a canteen, upload it to Instagram, again, with the hashtag Ancient Pottery December, and I'll share those at the end of the month. And we are working on that in the Ancient Potters Club too, if you want some lessons on it. This Wednesday, my video is about firing with cow manure, so check that out if you're interested in firing outdoors, because it is a good fuel. And sign up for my newsletter if you want a coupon. Now's the time when people are buying a lot of gifts, and I do have pottery for sale in my store, as well as pottery making supplies. Some of that smectite clay, mesquite bean paint, things like that. So the 20% discount. My monthly newsletter will come out next week. It will have a coupon for 20% off for the rest of the month. So if you are interested in that kind of thing, that's a good discount, and you can sign up for that. Okay. Let me get the rest of the chats now out of the way. If I can figure out where I left off. I wish there was a way to like bookmark the chat so I know where I left off last time, because I spend half the time trying to figure that out. Young Willie, I'm having good results with beginner for some reason. I'm having the worst time making a pookie. You know, I hear that a lot, Young Willie, is that people struggling to make pookies. Have you tried my how to make a pookie lesson that you get when you sign up for my newsletter? Phyllis Georgic, I would be great to know what the huge pots were used for. Yeah, hard to know. I mean, they could have used it for water storage. I mean, this is a desert, right? They could have used it just to store grains in, right? Because they were farmers. I mean, stored their grain for next season. That's a great question. My guess would be dried grain, corn, Mrs. Adams. Yeah, that's a good guess. Incredible line work. No kidding. Yeah, adore the shape of that teardrop-shaped pot. Yeah, they're beautiful. Some tribes brewed beer in huge pots. Yeah, for sure. And that is probably something that some of these people did as well. But I think probably the beer brewing might have been more plainware, because it would probably, if you see some of those Tarahumara pots that have had beer brewed in them, they'll have crusty stuff all over them. So it would pretty mess up a painted pot. But you know, who knows? Wood ash is not a temper. I've heard using wood ash for temper can result in cracks, pops, similar to caliche. Yeah. Jacob Marcus Rutherford. Wood ash is not a temper. The definition of temper is non-plastic material. Wood ash is not non-plastic. In fact, wood ash, when it's wet, is plastic. It is not. Volcanic ash is a temper, because volcanic ash is just mineral. It's just rocks that have been blasted into powder. So wood ash is not a temper. And wood ash is high in calcium, so you can get problems with it as well. Wood ash is not temper. You can use wood ash for a glaze if you're firing hot enough, but it's not temper. About clay dictating shape. Yeah, I think, Jeff, I think that's, I've thought of that a lot. I think if you go to different cultures and see different shapes that kind of proliferate, sometimes, but not always, that can tell you something about the qualities of their clay. Because, you know, I mean, we all run into that, right? We're using a certain clay and we find that we can't build. Bobby, for example, right? Bobby's over in Zuni. He's trying to build those classic Sikyatki Polychrome jars that kind of come in. They're called like a flying saucer pot. So it'll build up on a pookie and then it comes in almost vertical to a little neck, right? He says he can't do it with Zuni clay. It just won't work. And because Zuni clay doesn't have the same qualities that Hopi clay does. How much percent of sand to add to the natural clay for the perfect pots? Yeah, Funi, is it Funi? Funny? It's going to depend on the clay. Every clay is different. So I usually start with 20% sand and then see how that works. If I feel like I need more, I can go up to 30, 35%. If I feel like it's too much, I can cut it down. Find out what works for you through experimenting. Mrs. Adams, every clay is different. Yeah, that's for sure. Phyllis Georgic. Thanks, Andy. Good stuff. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Phyllis. I love them all. It's going to be hard to decide. You have to decide, Jave. Chris in Kansas. Curious about the manure temps you got. You know what? I had trouble getting a temp on it because I didn't bring my thermocouple, which probably would have been better. I tried shooting inside that. The cow manure, all those chips kind of lay over everything, so you can't get a good shot with your, like between sticks, you know, you usually have an area like this between logs where you can shoot the beam on my infrared thermometer. But with those cow chips, you know, there wasn't really a good spot to get in there. I got a couple attempts that were in the 700 range, and I think I got hotter than that based on how clinky the pots were, and I have no fire clouds, so I have to think it, you know, it burned hot enough to burn all the carbon out, but I really don't. It would be good to do some more experimenting with it, Chris, because I don't know. I'm not sure about my temps, to tell you the truth. Young Willie, it's good to have you here. Glad you showed up. I have to remove some sand from my local. Yeah, well, sometimes clay has too much impurities, and you have to remove some. Thanks for all you do. Love your videos. Thanks, Mrs. Adams. I appreciate it. Baba Yaga, thanks for your time. You're welcome. Andy, you're the king. Thanks for all you do. Granny Goose, thanks, Granny. I appreciate you. One of the best parts of my day. Thanks for all your efforts. Thanks, Wes. I'm glad you could make it. I think you have to be logged into YouTube to like. Maybe. That might be true. Thanks for making. Adios. All right, everybody. Thanks. I appreciate you showing up here today, and I hope you got something out.